On the 7th of July 2011, digital EDM label Monstercat released their first compilation, Monstercat 001 Launch Week. Now you may be asking, Deck, what the fuck? This isn't a 2020 or 2021 review. This isn't a new album that we should be excited about. Okay. First off, let me put it to you this way, okay? Monstercat is an EDM label, and some of my earliest exposures to music that I would grow to be passionate about, that I would love very much, is EDM. I was running into artists like Skrillex or deadmau5, and they would become huge cornerstones for electronic dance music in the modern decade, the 2010s. And one of my favorite things to come out of that, one of my favorite things that I've ever discovered, was Monstercat. What spawned as a promotion channel for all these artists to expose their sound grew to be an all-out record label of great and talented EDM artists from all over the globe. They changed a lot of things in the EDM game. Like, they pretty much set the stage for other EDM labels to come. As far as I'm aware anyways. I love them. I absolutely adore them. When I discovered them in like 2012, I listened to them religiously for like 4 years straight. And the best part about it was always the compilations. They are the culminations of every era to come out of Monstercat. For every bunch of songs they would release, they would put out a compilation highlighting every single one of those singles. It's always so much fun to see each of those singles get pushed out and released to the world, seeing them all have so many different sounds, and they're just so much fun to listen to. They're so good most of the time. I also get very excited for the album mixes. I'm not as excited anymore, but it did inspire me to do a bit of a DJing hobby before I kind of stopped doing that. Now, of course, Monstercat isn't really perfect. I would say that right now, like, even as they divided off into two different branches for different sounds, I feel like they've gotten more homogenous than ever, but I don't want to dwell on that yet. I'll get to them when I get to them. Right now, I want to review and rank every single Monstercat compilation, starting with the first one, Launch Week. As the title implies, this is 7 songs, released 1 day a week. They normally do about like 3 songs a week, at least during this series of compilations. They did about 30 of them before they moved on to Uncaged and Instinct, which I will say, I kind of miss that. I kind of miss this era of them putting out those triple-digit compilations. With that aside, I'm going to do a ranking of every song on this compilation. This is 7 tracks. I'm going to do them in order of release date, not in order of whatever track list that the label chooses. And this is all going to be in a tier list. What you'll see on the screen right now is how I use my tier list. I kind of designed this one myself on PowerPoint. I could just use my own on TierMaker, but I'm also not sane, so leave that there. You can see where and why I would place any of these songs from anywhere from S tier to F tier, and I'll give my reasoning as I review each and every one of these tracks. This is going to get very long. Like, it's going to get up to 30 songs, 40 if I continue to go past the 30 compilations in the main series. But we're going to start small with 7 and see how this goes. Now, let's be very clear here. 2011 was a very primitive time for the label. The majority of songs that they would release in 2011 would be emblematic of how skeletal and primitive that their releases would be. Up until 2012, when I would say they honed their craft into fleshing out their work more and more. And this is reflective of every artist on the label and their evolution with the label. This isn't the label producing the music, this is the artists that are affiliated with it. As such, we're going to talk about the first song they released on the label, Dubstep Killed Rock and Roll by Ephixa. You can see that they were trying to push dubstep to a new level, even though at the time they never knew how. Ephixa always had a bit of that sort of attitude around the time, up until he was kicked after he was like taunting deadmau5, saying we're better than you or something. That's as far as I can remember, though. I do enjoy the song quite a lot. It's got a very, very dramatic piano melody going on for it. The drops of the song were definitely the better of the ones in this compilation. I wouldn't say it's completely fantastic because, again, it's kind of emblematic of how skeletal that process would be. Several tracks would be even more skeletal than this, but Ephixa, I would say he, at the time, knew what he was doing with dubstep and Brostep and all that sort of stuff. It's good, but it's not ultimately the greatest that he would put out with. In the grand scheme of Monstercat, this is pretty much like a Neanderthal getting out of his cave. I keep using that metaphor a lot. I'm putting him in B tier. I'm putting Ephixa in B tier just to start things off well. The next song is The Force by Halo Nova, who would then change her name to Varian. This sounds nothing like what Varian would do in several compilations going forward. It is even more bare bones and skeletal, and it has like Sonic the Hedgehog samples laced on several parts of it. I don't know what the point of that was. It had some neat ideas, but it's just not very good. I'm glad she left behind this project to pursue Varian, which would be so much more than what Halo Nova ever had the potential to be. Which is why I would probably put The Force in F tier. Yeah, this is not, like, this shows that, because B tier is kind of the peak of this first compilation. This kind of shows just where the label was at the time and how much better they would become from there. And we'll get to that point when we get to that point. I know exactly where we get to that point, but I want to get these ones over with, get them over with. Then we have the debut from one of the longest running artists on the label, one of the most iconic, recognizable, Stephen Walking. I will admit, at the time, that was not the best name you could have come up with, especially when you name the song Still Walking. I'll admit, over time, he definitely made the name his own instead of what it would have implied at the time. I'm not gonna tell you what, you know. A lot of people kind of didn't like this one, but I have a soft spot for it, if I'm being completely honest. Maybe it was the Tears for Fears sample and how eerie it makes the track and how dramatic the drops were, especially the sirens on the second drop. That one I actually really adored. It's good. I like it. I like listening to it. It is very flawed. I would probably slide it in D tier. D tier is good for it. Mostly because while it has amazing ideas, it's still completely bare bones. And that's what a lot of this compilation is. It's bare bones. By contrast, this next track is from Arion, Cold Blood and Ice Cream Cones, the original mix. Don't know why it specifically said that. That song did not get any remixes, as far as I'm aware. In my opinion, this is probably the best song on the compilation. I'd say it's a tie. We'll get to the other half of that tie, but it's definitely the most fleshed out and dense of the tracks here. And it's not even dubstep, it's Electro house. So this song definitely has a lot of things going on for it. And I think, yeah, even now, it's kind of impressive for the time that it was made compared to all the other tracks that would be made around it. Yeah, you know what? A tier. Let's put this in A tier. Jesus, that is loud. So yeah, A tier. We're going for A tier. Next is Going Quantum with Hello. Going Quantum has been one of the core people behind the label and the staff for the longest time, which is weird considering he only released at least 4 tracks in the entire history of the label. Probably more. I might be missing out on some new ones. The dude hosts his own Going Quantum podcast, which at the time, EDM podcasts meant like whole mixes of EDM tunes. And he's definitely a better mixer than he is a producer, because Hello is just a very, very, very raw and very gimmicky song. If you've played Portal or Portal 2, you'll probably be very annoyed at the samples from the turrets showing up so many times on the track. It kind of gets annoying. The bass of the song is weird too. It just sounds like it's sick. Like, it's not the type of sick they would affiliate with dubstep that sounds good. It's like, do you genuinely need a thermometer or something? That's not to say it doesn't have good ideas. When it does, it kind of does, but generally speaking, I'd slide this in the F tier. Don't get me wrong, I do enjoy most, if not every song that Monstercat has released throughout this series, but judging it critically, by most standards, especially compared to other Monstercat songs that would come in the future, there are songs worth being in the F tier, and this song is one of them. However, I said before that Cold Blood and Ice Cream Cones was tied with another song for best song in the album. I'd say that song is Atlas by Feint, which is up next. Pretty much their first drum and bass song on the label, and definitely shows just how passionate Feint is with his production. I don't think it's his best song at all. I don't think so, compared to what he would do afterwards, but it's definitely a higher standard than most of the songs on here. Personally, I go with B tier. I love listening to it, but compared to other Feint songs in the future, as well as other songs in this compilation, I'd say Arion gets the win here for best track. And then finally we have Captivating by Neilio, which is a very strange case. Neilio pretty much introduced hard dance and hardstyle EDM on the label with only like 4 songs before disappearing altogether. I have no idea what he's up to now, and I have no idea if he'd be any better at it now than he was at the start of this label's existence. Captivating is one of the better songs on here, probably because it's the first, and other songs later on would copy and paste a few certain ideas, but it doesn't really help that it's a pretty mediocre song overall, especially with inspirational speeches laced throughout most of the songs on here, with a notable exception we'll get to in a future video. Also, the drops that you get in the middle of the song have bass kicks that are weaker than the ones in the intro and outro of the song. I don't know how to feel about that detail, because that's not a good look. It's pretty much that motivational, inspirational hard dance that has been severely outdated. And again, it is one of the better ones on here. D tier or E tier though, I'm not too sure. I'd probably go with D tier at the moment. So that's all 7 of the tracks on this compilation. I realize this video is quite long, and it will be longer with more additions, but I just kind of want to warm things up and just talk about how much I enjoyed this compilation. Like, my enjoyment of these songs fluctuate with time a lot. Sometimes I enjoy them regardless of their critical quality. Other times they can get to me. They can get to me quite a bit. Like, right now it's a 7 out of 10. It could easily be a 6 out of 10, maybe even a 4 out of 10. Or if I'm feeling generous, actually no, there's no way I'm giving this an 8 out of 10. It's a 7 at most. It's a 7 at most. My nostalgia is tied into my enjoyment with this compilation and whether or not I'm feeling it, because I've listened to pretty much every song from the label around that point. Even these 2011 compilations, which is absurd looking back compared to what they would make in 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. It's very strange. It's completely wild how they have evolved from this point to where they would be now, especially with so many peaks. Like, they had a golden era, for fuck's sake. So we're off to an okay start. I give it like a 7, 6, 5, or 4. That's how I would see it, because my enjoyment is tied into whether or not I'm feeling critical or nostalgic. And that can go with any mood of the day, really. It can get worse though. It can get worse, but it can get much better. So look forward to future videos. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you really enjoyed this. I'm playing on a few more ideas here. This one is one of the unique, weird ones I was talking about. I'm very excited to continue this because I love Monstercat so much. But all things aside, I'll see you in the next episode.